Hey everyone, today we're going to be going over some decks for the Mobius raid and some tips and tricks for how best to deal with it. Here is one of two decks I have for the Mobius raid. Why I have two? Well, that's because the deck that you're seeing here kind of becomes a bit useless once you get to the hard difficulty raid points, and at that point we kind of switch over to another deck. But I wanted to showcase off this deck first because this deck was a pretty easy victory all the way up until sort of the later levels of medium and the beginning of hard. The ace for this deck is kind of interchangeable. It's either Stardust or Elemental Hero Neos. I actually used Neos for most of the medium difficulty, and I'd actually recommend having a Neos over Stardust at the beginning, at least until you feel like you need to switch. This is because as a, level 7 monster, Neos gets 2 anti-shield objects in addition to all of his other skills. So he can basically break all, because all the shields in medium level are level 3, he can break all of the shields. One sacrifice, he can break a shield of, free shields on. So he makes it very, very simple for you to be able to just summon Neos every single turn and break that shield, unless the boss is obviously doing one of their abilities where they use skill negation in the middle row. And that's actually why Stardust is currently the ace in this deck, because when you get to the last couple of levels of medium difficulty, he starts to do this a fair bit, the boss, and so I figured, okay, well, let's just put Stardust in so I can actually take out the boss's shields when he does this. But I think it's very possible with either Stardust or Neos. And if you don't have Stardust, if you have Black Rose Dragon, that is also another good one to put in, as Black Rose also has reincarnation and immunity to skill negation. So you basically can summon it, get it back, summon it, get it back. Now, the raid ability for Stardust is definitely useful in this deck. It's not strictly necessary at medium, but it is definitely useful to have, and especially for the later levels of hard, which we'll be seeing later, it is definitely a very, very useful skill to have in. As for the rest of the deck, we simply just have a combination of anti-object and anti-shield. We do have one or two assist heal monsters in, just to sort of stave off the boss killing us from damage. Usually it doesn't happen, but it can do, which is why I have one or two in. Now, your best monsters are going to be the ones which have anti-shield and anti-skill negation. There are only a handful of these currently, which is like V Tiger Jet, Archfiend Eccentric, and one of the Photon monsters, which I currently don't have, which is a super rare. These are good because, again, when the boss does the skill negation abilities, you want to put these down the center lane to destroy the shields. Ideally, though, you do need like 2 lots of anti-shield on these, and these only have 1. Kuribo is a very good one because when the boss does skill negation down the side lane, you can use Kuribo here. And yeah, apart from that, this is basically just a case of, hey, summon Neos as much as you can. Always try and put something down the middle lane for the shields. Always try and put something down the side lane for the anti-objects. One thing to point out in this, I have Archfiend Eccentric and I have V Tiger Jet with basically only 2 slots. If you have more of these cards, I would make sure you have at least 2 cards in the deck, maybe 3, that only have 1 or 2 slots on them. This is because every turn the boss is going to essentially steal your monster with, the monster with the least amount of skills, and put it into storage. So what you ideally want to do is have some bait for this ability where you can summon a monster that only has 1 or 2 slots, so it's always going to get picked up by that skill and taken into storage, therefore protecting your other monsters from doing what they need to do. And then, of course, if you destroy the object, you get that monster with the 1 skill back, and then you can put it out again. So I'd have maybe like 2 or 3 of these. If you draw more than 1 of them, you can either use it as a backup or use it as a tribute for Neos or Stardust or anything like that. So that's this deck. This deck should pretty easily get you to the higher levels of medium, and then you might struggle a little bit at like the final level or 2 of medium, but it should get you into hard mode if you just give it 1 or 2 tries. There is a bit of RNG if you're playing with bots for how good the bots do. This is actually one of the reasons why I have in Shooting Starbow Seal, because A lot of the time the bots will summon something and it won't quite be enough to break those shields, but with the Starbow you can actually make it so they break those shields. Right, now on to our second deck. This is the deck I use to get me through all of the hard levels, and for the most part it was very, very easy, except for like level 24, 25. The ace for this is the newly brought out card, Magician of Black Chaos. Now, there are only a handful of monsters with anti-shield. Great Moth, Perfectly Ultimate Great Moth is not a good one because the boss has a skill which will basically take your highest level monster and put it into storage. And so you can summon Great Moth, but it's just going to get put into storage and you're going to have to resummon it again at some point. So Great Moth is not great to use. Seven's Road and Photon Dragon are good if you have multiple slots, and if you have at least I think if you have at least 2 slots and you have the SP efficient summon in and you have at least 1 anti-shield on there, they're still good to put in. They can still break the shield and do a bunch of damage to the boss. But Magician of Black Chaos has Reincarnation, and this skill is definitely key for this. You don't need a free slot Magician of Black Chaos if you have at least 2 slots and you have SP Reincarnation and 1 anti-shield. It is now going to be able to break the shields on hard difficulty because the boss will have 4 shields on all sides, and at the higher levels you need to take out like 15 to 17 of these before the boss goes into its stun phase. So this, every time you summon this will just be able to break all the shields, come back to your hand, and then wait for you to summon it again. So that's the reason why we have these two. So very, very, very useful. If you don't have the material, the Ultima material to get this, or you don't have two slots, you might still be able to do this with Stardust Dragon as your ace. That is obviously if you have a free slot Stardust. If you do have Stardust as your ace, Stardust is not going to be able to take out all the shields. It's only going to be able to take out 3 of the 4 shields per time you summon it. However, it will power up all of the AI's monsters, and the AI has a funny thing in this where they will usually summon their anti-shield monster in the center lane, but it usually won't be enough to get over the anti-raid the raid monster that the boss has summoned. So a lot of the time, or the boss will use a skill which will basically buff up its raid monsters by 500 defense and attack, and that will then mean that the AI does not have enough power to get over it. So Stardust can be very, very good. It will be a little RNG, I think. If you only have Stardust as your ace, it might be quite difficult, but you might still be able to do it. Having both in the deck, though, really means that you have the best of both worlds, and on those turns where the boss is free, you can just summon this, get in. Because most of the time the AI is going to be able to take out all of the shields themselves. They do have monsters with 3 to 4 slots on, so most of their monsters can take out all of the shields. It's only going to be on occasion where they can't. So it is possible, but I definitely would recommend having both of these in. Now, as for the deck, we have 4 monsters with red scale and 4 monsters with blue scale in. And as you can see, all of these monsters only have 1 slot on them. It doesn't matter what ones they are. So if you don't have these 2 super rares, I'm pretty sure there are other scales that you can put in. At worst, if you don't have the super rares, just having all the rares. There are 4 more super rares. There are 6 super rares in total that do have the scales. So hopefully, if you do have them, try and put in 4. Otherwise, 3 is fine. You might just need to do the raid a couple more times until you get a good hand. Apart from that, we have in a couple of anti-object monsters, a couple of anti-shield monsters. The raid monsters at level 25 have 1,100 attack and defense. So ideally, you want your anti-shield monsters to be something that can reach over that, or something that has anti-skill negation if you do have enough slots for the anti-skill negation monsters. And then we have a couple of anti-object monsters. These are basically backups. These are just basically there for oh crap, things have gone horribly wrong, I need to destroy the object myself, or something like that. Because the idea with this deck is that we will be relying on the AI to destroy the object. This deck has basically been crafted to go with the AI to enhance the AI's decks, essentially, to win this raid. Apart from that, we have Performable Hippo and Dark Resonator here, which is basically, just in case we don't get the red and the blue, these are just extra cards that will allow us to get out Stardust or Magician of Black Chaos. And then we have a couple of healers in here, which I've tried to put as higher level ones as possible. And again, these are just to heal up a bit to not die from the boss. Now, the reason why I've gone for heal and not assist heal here is the idea with all of these cards, the reason why they have such, they only have one slot, or in the healer cases, like 2 slots, is you play them, the boss then targets them because they are the monsters with the least amount of slots in the game, put them into storage, so you still get the ability, you still get the pendulum scales, you still get the healing, and then at the end of the battle phase, you destroy the object, or your allies destroy the object, and then they come back to your hand, and you can use those abilities again. So that's why they're low there. And so what this deck goes to do is it takes what is probably one of the most annoying kind of boss skills, where it storages your lowest skill monster on the field and uses it to our advantage. First of all, we're baiting out that skill. We're making it so that, all of our allies have monsters usually have the same number of skill slots. So it's going to take 2 of their monsters, and that could be, oh crap, that's a shield that could have been destroyed, or that's an object that could have been destroyed. Now we're like, no, you're taking these, right? You're not taking any of the AI. The AI is going to be able to summon their monsters, destroy those shields, destroy those objects. We're going, you're taking our monsters, and not only are you taking our monsters, we're getting the summon ability of these monsters, and then when we get it back to our hand, we're going to use that ability again. So yeah, so the idea on this is every turn you summon a red and blue scale, they get put into storage, you get, at the end of the turn you get them back into your hand, you pendulum summon, you summon both the scales again, they go into storage, you get them back to your hand, and so forth. And it actually turns out to be quite a powerful combo. The only spell cards we have in are Shooting Bow Seal. This is basically to combo with Stardust Dragon, that might not be able to destroy the shields on its own, and occasionally some opponents, some AI monsters, when they occasionally don't summon a monster that can destroy the shield on their own, we use this on that. And the other one is Twin Swords, which is the anti-raid monster spell. This is because the AI is stupid, and sometimes they summon, a good anti-shield monster that would break the shield, but won't get over the raid monster, and so this is to help them get over that raid monster. Anyway, this is the deck, and this deck, compared to at least the first deck I showed, I think is quite, you don't need too much in order for this deck to be good. You don't need too many of these, you don't need too many of the skills on, like, Hippo, Dark Resonator, or anything like that. You don't even really need the skills on Avion and stuff. Obviously, it does help a lot. If you do have at least, 3 anti-shields on this, 4 on Avion, so it can get over the raid monster, it does help a lot. But I think even if you didn't have any anti-shield, anti-raid monsters in this deck, you could still beat this raid on hard, so long as you have 2 slots on your Magician of Black Chaos and the anti-raid skill, and a 3-slot Stardust. Bit here and there. It's a bit top-heavy with the ultra rares that you need, but the rest of the deck is not too bad as long as you have those ultra rares. And of course, if you don't have those skills, it might take a bit more time for you just to get that good RNG or good hand. These skills do come in useful for a turn or 2 in the game, as you'll see. But anyway, hopefully that helps you out. With that all said and done, let's get into the raid. So, yeah, as usual, no one to play with at level 25, just a bunch of AI bots. So we got pretty lucky in this first hand in that we actually got 2 red and 2 blue pendulum scales. Don't worry too much if you don't get these in your first hand. I actually, seeing as I had to, I actually opted to sacrifice 2 of them for Magician of Black Chaos, because then I can actually take out the shield, this shield, knowing that basically every shield is going to be pretty essential, seeing as I'm playing with AI here. So I did that. I've put out the red and blue scale. They're going to be used as bait for the boss to pick up with his ability. And notice as well that you can put the scale on the side lane, even though it's going to get negated, or it doesn't actually get negated by that point. But you can put it on the side lane, it's perfectly fine when the boss has that skill that negates something on the side lane. And straight away, first turn, we actually break down 3 shields, which is pretty good. As you can see, we need 15 shields in order to stun him, which is quite a jump in the last 2 levels. I think up until like level 23 or 24, it's like you need like 10 or 11 shields, and then 24 it jumps, and then for the final one it jumps again. Now the skill the boss is using here is quite an annoying one. It takes the highest level monster and puts it in storage. This is where something like Zubaba Knight, or any anti-shield monster you have that isn't high level is good. Despite not being able to attack the boss on this round, I'm still putting out the pendulum monsters as bait for the boss's ability. Now realistically, I could have just put out 1 monster here rather than 2, because then the boss will only take 1 of them. But this early on, I feel like it's still pretty safe to do that, because the AI has a lot of cards. They'll be able to destroy the objects anyway. But I think just to be safe, if this does happen, and you already have the pendulum scales, just throw out 1 card. Throwing out the healers, if you have the healers in your hand at this point, is also good, because then you can get some heals in. And another option, I guess, would have been to throw out Stardust, buff all my allies' stuff up by 1,000, so they at least do a little bit of damage to the boss. Right, Drowning Mirror Force this time. So this is why we have Stardust. If you have Stardust or Black Rose at 3 copies and you have those skills, they're probably the best ones to put out here. They won't destroy the shield, and the monsters that the AI summons as well, they have 1 less shield destruction, so they won't destroy the shields either. But at the very least, you can use this to get rid of any raid monsters and at least put down the shield, so that the next turn everyone can throw down a monster there and destroy them.
What to do? Forward.
So we get our pendulum scales back, we get our Stardust back. One thing you definitely need to watch out for playing this is just be wary when you're going to end a turn with more than 6 cards. You may need to dump a card. And knowing in your head what that card is going to be before the turn ends is very useful, because it gives you all of about 5 seconds. So the reason why I'm playing Stardust here over Magician of Black Chaos is, 1, because all of the shields are quite low. I really don't need to play Magician of Black Chaos here. And 2, the opponent is using the skill which ups the raid monster's attack and defense by 500. So Stardust will help Baby Dragon get over that raid monster, whereas it wouldn't have been able to get over it normally. And I would definitely consider, every time this skill appears, Ice Mirror, every time it appears that increases the raid monster's defense by 500, I would definitely consider playing Stardust over Magician of Black Chaos. Because if you play a Stardust, yeah, you're not going to be able to destroy all the shields on your side, but there is a chance that the AI will, whereas they wouldn't if you wouldn't have been able to play Stardust. So, the overall result by playing Stardust is getting rid of 3.5 shields, whereas if you didn't play Stardust, you'd only get rid of 3 shields. Obviously that is a risk, because the AI might not play something that it could destroy all the shields anyway. So another Drowning Mirror Force, so we're playing Stardust again. And you can kind of see what I was saying in the deck discussion, in that if you had Stardust as your ace, you may not need Magician of Black Chaos. It just really depends on the RNG.
No. What to do?
Here I was thinking about using the shooting bow, but because I could have used it on my Stardust and I could have used it on the AI monster at the very back there, but in the end I thought, oh, no one, neither one of us is going to destroy the shield. Might as well save it for a like a better time. But I think it would have been perfectly fine to use it then anyway, and I wouldn't have had to have gotten rid of the card at the end of the turn. And just as I'm thinking, finally I can summon my Magician of Black Chaos and attack him normally. No, again, a really, really bad cue in this one of all the of what the boss is doing here. So here I'm putting out Tsubaba Knight. This is one that, this is the reason why you have these lower level anti-shield monsters that can actually break the shield, because in turns like this, you can throw them out and they can break the shield. I'm still putting out one of the pendulum scales to bait out the boss's ability, and I'm also putting out Stardust here as well, again to bait out the boss's ability, because I see in my hand that, next turn I can actually just sacrifice 2 cards for Stardust or Magician of Black Chaos. We're also getting towards the last couple turns as well. So I can afford to basically sacrifice the cards if I need to. And plain Stardust here will help the my AI companion get over the raid monster as well, which they wouldn't have been able to do if I hadn't played it. And as a result, and with my shooting bow, they're able to break one of the shields as well. And that gets the boss down to 13 out of 15 shields destroyed, with 1 turn left to destroy at least 2 shields. And my Duelist Free on my right is having trouble getting rid of the object as well. The other thing is, as you can see, we're down to 300 life points. So we didn't really draw. We only drew like one of our health monsters and didn't really have a chance to play it this game. You can, as you can see, you can survive just with the AI, with the duelist monsters just going down the lanes and healing you for 500 every time they hit the assist hill. But it can be a bit of RNG depending on what the ally draws, if they decide to sacrifice it, etc. But as you can see, it's very, very possible to get to this point without any healing, like any sort of assist hill healing or healer skill healing whatsoever. And here I just put down Avion rather than sacrificing 2 for Magician of Black Chaos, because Avion can destroy all the shields, and I'm just making absolutely sure. I can see that I'm definitely going to be able to defeat him on the next turn, and I'm making just absolutely sure that I can summon my Magician of Black Chaos on the next turn. So, final turn, time to do the last bit of damage. I'm summoning both Magician of Black Chaos and Stardust to get in the maximum amount of damage possible. And there you have it. That is the Mobius raid, and the ability to do it with all AI companions. Honestly, with this deck, it was pretty easy going up until level 24, and then level 24 and level 25 are where things get a little bit tricky. This was my second attempt to do it with the AI. So I hope this guide has helped you. Please let me know if you're having trouble in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching. Subscribe to the channel for more crossfield content, and I will see you on the ladder.